Don't you just love when you find that card that no one is expecting, and in the middle of a game, your opponent is going for a super clutch move, and you just have the card that they do not see coming, and you win the game because of it? Those are the best parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes. What's going on with your big dog? And it is an amazing Tuesday. So amazing that we gotta talk about the Saos today. There are tons of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards in this card game, a shy bit over 10,000 to be exact. It takes a big brain Jane to know what cards that you are going to need into this format and what cards are going to be amazing going forward. But don't worry, big dog, you're not gonna have to do the adamantipate or excavate. I've actually pulled out some cards that are gonna be really good. So good that these tech cards could potentially win you games. That's right, I know it may feel like Christmas in October because I'm checking my list and I'm doing it twice. These Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards are gonna make you, I was gonna say make you a wife, but I don't think that that's something that you may be interested in. Unless, hey, I'm not here to judge you, big dog, do what you gotta do. That's right, so today I'm going to be talking about some really powerful tech cards, but I'm actually going to need a little bit of your help. Since it is over 10,000 cards, there may be a few cards that you may know that I may not have mentioned. Go ahead and let everyone know about these tech cards and their particular function and how powerful they can be into this metagame or the metagame post-Burst of Destiny. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Now to start off, I actually want to talk to you about a card that some people may be having a huge problem with. Crossout Designator is a card that made its debut in the 2021 Megatons, so at the time of making this video, it's about 4 days old. Now I bet you're wondering, how good is Crossout Designator exactly? If you ask me, I feel like the card is definitely overhyped. It's a card that isn't a mainstay in every Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategy, but it does have its place in the current card game. And with that, we have to respect it as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Another cool thing about Crossout Designator is that since it costs so much, it would be a shame if we beat your $100 Yu-Gi-Oh! Card with some cards that are worth under $5. That's right, some people thought that Engraver of the Mark was the card to use against Crossout Designator. That card's trash. Let's talk about some actual cards that are really good. Blizzard is a spell card that came from our Overlord Rise of the Duelist. Seriously, one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets of all time, and what this card does is that you can target one face-up spell card on the field and negate its effects. The only drawback is if the targeted spell card would be sent to the graveyard that turn, it's added to your opponent's hand. But in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game where speed is everything, who really cares? Your Nibiru getting Crossout Designator at that point in time is what's going to win the game. Sure, take the Crossout Designator back in your hand, allow me to wipe your board. Blizzard is also really good against some of those blowout spell cards like Forbidden Droplet if they don't decide to send a spell card themselves, and Lightning Storm, seeing that these cards are hard activations, meaning that your opponent can only use them once. Yeah, they just gonna sit in the hand for a whole turn. There's also another really good card in the metagame right now that's just a natural counter to Crossout Designator, and Artifact Lancia. Now Lancia can only be used on your opponent's turn, but it prevents all cards from being banished during that turn. Crossout Designator needs to banish. You see where we're going here. Lancia is also really good against the Tri-Brigade strategy and can be a pretty big convenience for the Virtual World strategy, as well as a host of other decks out there. And the last card that can not only beat the living daylights out of Noblemen of Crossout, it's Crossout Designator, but you get what I'm saying. My Yugi Boomer is showing! Psyframe Gear Delta is a hand trap that is the cousin or brother or possibly even sister of Psyframe Gear Gamma. Basically what it does is if you control no monsters, you can negate an opponent's spell activation and summon this card to your side of the field, as well as a Psyframe Gear Driver. If you pair this card with Psyframe Lambda, then you can activate this card even while you have monsters on your field. And if you ask me, this makes Lambda a really good Yu-Gi-Oh! Card, as now not only is Gamma good, Delta can stop Lightning Storm, Forbidden Droplets that doesn't send a monster, and Nobleman of Crossout or Crossout Designator, damn it! Ironically, there's actually a ton of searching inside of this format. Decks like Drytron love to go through their deck a billion times before they make their inboard, and that's actually some way we can take advantage. There is a Yu-Gi-Oh card called Mistaken Arrest, and basically what this card does is after this card resolves, neither player can add cards from their deck to their hand except for drawing them until the end of the next turn. Now, Mistaken Arrest almost feels like it has a drawback, seeing that if you activate it on one turn, the next turn, which would probably be your turn, you can't search, but it's actually extremely good even against Drytron. The reason why I'm saying this is because Drytron players have gotten extremely cheeky, being able to special summon Herald of Perfection or Ultimateness to their side of the field, and then discard an Eva will get them 2 additional fairy monsters from their deck to their hand to be able to negate with their Herald monsters. Not this time around. Not only can you stop them from searching on their turn, you can stop them from searching on your turn to provide extra negates to some of their monsters. There's also another card in Mistake that just simply prevents both players from searching while it remains on the field. I strongly suggest that you reserve this card for a deck that doesn't need to search. Also, just in case if your deck really needs to search and you're not a big fan of either of those cards, Shared Ride could be a really good alternative, as this card allows you to draw cards anytime your opponent searches. This could be the card that you might need. Regardless on whatever card you choose for your particular deck, you can say that your opponent will make a huge mistake if they decide to share your ride. Cause that one was actually really good. What's really been interesting about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that it's evolved past banishing cards in your opponent's graveyard to disrupt them, as decks like Virtual World and Tri-Brigade can respectively use Virtual World Chuchi and Tri-Brigade Revolt to basically recycle those cards. You gotta get a little more creative. Well, this Yu-Gi-Oh! Card is not only creative, it puts the cards back to where they came from. Transmigration of the Prophecy is a very, very fun Yu-Gi-Oh card because basically what it does is it allows you to target cards in the graveyard and shuffle them back into the deck. Now, there's some pretty dope interactions with Transmigration of Prophecy. Let's say your opponent uses Forbidden Droplets to send monsters like Tri-Brigade Kit and Nerval to the graveyard. As Chainlink 2, you can actually activate Transmigration of Prophecy, provided that they don't activate a trap card, to shuffle in that Nerval and that Kit so they won't gain those effects. There's a couple of other interactions with this card, like in the Drytron matchup. If they were to tribute a Cyber Angel Benton, you can activate your Transmigration of Prophecy to shuffle Benton back in the deck and they won't get the search. This card is literally doing the Birdman hand rub, as not only is it a great graveyard disruptor, it just prevents cards from being activated if it's used at the right time. Now, that's not the only reason why I think that Transmigration of Prophecy is a really good Yu-Gi-Oh card. It actually just can disrupt combos. If your opponent has multiple Drytron monsters in the graveyard, well, shuffle them into the deck. Your opponent has BBWs in the graveyard, that's Beast Warrior, or Winged Beast. As much as I love a BBW, shuffle that thing into the deck. Your opponent wants to use some important card effects like Virtual World Qinglong and Nian Nian. Well, Transmigration of Prophecy. Transmi is actually a really fun Yu-Gi-Oh! Tech card that you might just find coming up in so many different scenarios. You can almost say that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that this card is good. So soon enough, fusion monsters are going to be even a bigger problem what they are. Not only is Red Eyes Dart Dragoon a card that seems to float around inside of rogue and lower tier decks, as well as a top tier deck in Drytron, there also is another fusion monster that's going to be busted off of Predaplant Vert Anaconda. It's almost like Predaplant Vert Anaconda is an enabler like Union Carrier, Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, Nightmare Mermaid, you know, cards like that, Link monsters that tend to have all be on the forbidden list. Huh. Well, there's no complaining about it. We're gonna have to deal with it at least for 3 more months. Fortunately for us, there's actually an answer to those fusion monsters and the synchro monsters to come. Dimensional Barrier is not only a hard counter to Red Eyes Dart Dragoon, but also Destiny Hero Phoenix Destroyer. What Dimensional Barrier does is declare one monster type: Ritual, Synchro, Exceed, or Fusion, and for the rest of the turn, not only are all monsters of the declared type's effects are negated, neither player can special summon those monsters to the side of the field. This card not only stops the natural mechanic to summon these monsters, it also prevents players from summoning those monsters in any other way. If you ask me, Dimensional Barrier is Magnifico. Dimensional Barrier is insane against cards like Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, as not only can it be responded to your opponent negating your card, meaning that your initial card will go through, it also makes Dragoon vulnerable to being targeted and destroyed, seeing that Dimensional Barrier blanket negates its effect. This card can also be activated in response to Predaplant Anaconda's effect, meaning that not only will your opponent lose 2,000 life points and the fusion card to their graveyard, they also won't be able to summon the monster. Dimensional Barrier is a fairly ridiculous card, as we haven't even talked about how it would be decent against Drytron, preventing them from ritual summoning, and also pretty decent against any deck that wants to make Zeus, seeing that that's an Exceed monster. But where Dimensional Barrier's true value comes from is that it can stop the new Sword Soul archetype coming out in Burst of Destiny, as this card can stop Synchro Summons. It's been a healthy 4 years since Dimensional Barrier has had the opportunity to be this spicy. I genuinely think that this card can make a splash as a really good tech card in the metagame. Well, that is pretty much all that I have for today. These are some really exciting cards that could potentially win you some really interesting games. Of course, if you have those secret techs, do not, and I mean do not hoard those ideas. Share them with me and everybody else. And of course, if you want to see more awesome content, then you can check out these videos, as I'll catch you on the next one.